What is up? What is up? Welcome back to another NBA Rundown brought to you courtesy of Run Pure Sports and Run Pure Bets. I'm joined today by Hoop, who has been absolutely crushing it in these DFS streets. So, pretty excited to talk some NBA with you. Hoop, I know it's been going well, but what are your thoughts on the NBA season so far?
I mean, so far, I mean, it's been great. I mean, you and I both, and I know we love the NBA, following it along, and some pretty cool storylines so far. I mean, the Miami Heat, how well they've been playing. I know I took advantage of that yesterday. I believe it was one of your picks, right? The Heat.
Yep.
You had the Heat. I was on the Heat. I think they might be one of the best teams in the NBA, maybe the best at this point. And the lines have not necessarily reflected that, in my opinion. So this is a situation I think early on in the season where, from a betting perspective, maybe people don't realize how good they are. I see it. Jimmy Butler's having a phenomenal season. I put a little money on him to win the MVP if he stays healthy and this team continues to crush. I think he has a legitimate chance here. So really like the Heat. There's some teams taking big steps back. I mean, the Portland Trailblazers look terrible, and I'm sure they'll get it going at some point. But Dame doesn't look all that interested. But yeah, I mean, the NBA always has just great storylines to follow. And like I said, the team I'm most excited about right now is the Miami Heat. Love what they're doing. Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero look phenomenal. But it's fun to have the NBA back.
All right, and before we get started in these games, I have to give a shout out to the chat. Our guy, We the People, yesterday saw us flying solo yesterday. Hoop had the chat really involved, had them give out a pick, and he gave out the Suns under, and that was the pick that I chose from the chat. So we swept on the best bets, one from me, one from the chat. So a lot of fun. Just wanted to give a shout out to you guys, and we will try to keep you involved today as well. Let's dive right into this card though, because it's pretty thick. The Portland Trailblazers out to 5.5 now with this news on Lauri Markkanen. A little disappointed because I jumped in last night before the news came out, and I wanted to talk to you if I should just double down and get the extra 2 points. Lit it right in the 3.5. Let's get your thoughts on the Portland Trailblazers heading to Cleveland Cavaliers. Trailblazers 0-3 on this road trip so far.
I did the same thing. That's funny because I took the Cavs last night. It was they're getting 4, I believe, when I bet it. I was like, yeah, I like that. Trailblazers have sucked this year. Cavs, I think, have been one of the more surprising teams in terms of spots where they've been able to win and hang around with some good teams. Marketing gets ruled out. I don't think it's like that big of a difference. Obviously, a slight downgrade for them, but I still feel pretty good. I mean, I bet the 4. I mean, maybe come back with a little bit, pick up some extra points, but probably just let it ride out and see if they're able to cover that 4 at home against a very disappointing team. And you have a team in the Cavs that appear to be better than people think. From a DFS perspective, no Kevin Love, no Lauri Markkanen. The guy that's going to get a big bump is Chetty Osman. He's going to move right into this starting lineup, most likely 3.6K, a guy that we've seen in the past, very capable of kind of contributing across the board. He'll rack up some steals, some blocks, knock down threes, which is ideal for DFS. So he's going to be a staple DFS guy in lineups today. On the Trailblazer side, hasn't been great for them, and they're not getting like a price discount at all. I mean, you still have Damian Lillard hovering right around 10K. You got CJ McCollum right around 8K, Nurkic 7.5K. All these guys are just kind of priced where they should be, and they're underperforming. So for me, no Trailblazers here in fantasy. Chetty Osman is a phenomenal DFS play. Should be pretty popular tonight. I think you can even look to like Ricky Rubio as well. Other guys I think are like tournament plays: Garland, Sexton, Mobley, Jared Allen. You can take a look at those guys, but the core guy from this game is going to be Chetty Osman. And man, I like backing the Cavs here today. Now I got the bad number at 4. Now it's up to 5.5. So definitely like that side.
Yeah, we will jump in on that. A player that you didn't mention that I was a little bit surprised, just hear you pass over because I think he's been the real reason this team is doing so well. Evan Mobley. Sorry, my DraftKings. I don't know what happened here. I had it up and it's not letting me edit the lineups here, so I can't see all these numbers. But I think he was right around 7K. What do you think of Evan Mobley so far? Just from an actual basketball perspective, and then maybe talk about his DFS upside.
Very impressive so far, basketball wise and DFS wise. Has had some big games. 3 out of the last 4. He's been over 32 fantasy points. The price has come up, though. So, I mean, you kind of need these mid-30s fantasy outputs for him to pay off the price tag. Can he do it? Absolutely. I think in tournaments, you can definitely look to a guy like Evan Mobley or even Jared Allen or even the guards. Like, I think all these guys are good. It's a good matchup against a team that's potentially on the decline in the Portland Trailblazers. So it's a good spot for the Cavs. Chetty is the obvious play, but those other guys I think are very viable in tournaments.
All right, and we both like the Cavaliers here. And the good thing for people watching, if you didn't get in overnight, you're basically getting 1.5 of free value because I believe, and I think you do too, that's probably an overreaction. I think Lauri Markkanen's good. He's been good for that team, and I like how they're going big to counter the rest of the NBA going small. I think that's worked in their advantage. But still, I think Mobley is kind of the engine of that team, and also the development of Darius Garland, who's been quite a fine player for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Let's move on to the next game. Let me switch back to my bookmaker. So many tabs. Boston Celtics are -7 going to Orlando to take on the Magic. At first, I was on the Magic or a full fade train. We're 2 weeks into the season. I've switched my tune. I'm going to grab them, getting big points. I don't think I'm going to do it tonight because there's plenty of spots I like on the board, and I do think the Celtics are kind of due to just beat someone up, right, and get things going in the right direction. Obviously, the story around the team right now, NBA loves their narratives, right, is Marcus Smart's comments post-game. But you know what? We were talking about that before it happened, right? So this doesn't come to a surprise. All basketball fans who were watching the game kind of saw that they were playing a little too much hero ball in that offense. I wonder how that affects the team. And what do you think about them laying 7 in Orlando tonight?
This is mostly a stay away game for me. And, we always talk about it on the NBA DFS shows. Like, it's fine just crossing games off the slate and pretending like they don't exist. This is one of those games for me with the Boston Celtics. They're going to be at full strength. If when Al Horford's out, I will look to Robert Williams and play him. If like Jaylen Brown's out, you can look to Jason Tatum. But man, when they're at full strength, they're not a great team for DFS purposes. They have guys coming off the bench too, Schroeder, Josh Richardson, just not a great team, and then not a great team for DFS. And then on the Magic side. Haven't really been playing too many of these guys. Mo Bamba, big upside, better play on FanDuel with the steals and the blocks. Cole Anthony had some big games last week, but the price is caught all the way up on him. Franz Wagner, big games as well, but price is up on him too. And it's not a good spot against the Celtics. Their team totals hovering right around 103, which is pretty darn low for this slate. So I'll be totally off this game, and I really just don't even have a lean on that 7, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I lean towards the Magic, but I think there's better spots on the board. And at the end of the day, they're not a very good basketball team. And they're going against the Celtics team, who I think will be motivated to give their full effort. And it's funny, we talked about the pricing last week, and it's so weird how some of these guys adjust and some of them don't, right? Like Cole Anthony, I had him in some nice lineups that cashed, especially in the cash games, because I felt that he would, you talked about Rudy Gobert on your Hardwood show yesterday, and I kind of felt Anthony's the same way. When you throw him in that cash lineup, I think it's a really high floor, right? So I did enjoy playing him, but now they moved it. Then there's other guys like Jalen Brunson who just seem to have value every night, and they're just not moving them up in the price. So now I see what you're saying on how these prices just are. This
there's
huge
no rhyme or
mystery.
reason to it. I mean, I mean, Cole Anthony was like 4.5K, and now crap, they almost doubled the damn thing. He's up.
The guy who wrote the algorithm is going to have like a 30 for 30 in like 20 years and explain it all, like the Wizard of Oz, the man behind the curtain. So we're completely fine staying away from this game. Lean towards the Magic here. And you know what, Hoop, I forgot to mention it. We talked about it yesterday. I'm fine staying away from the totals now. At first, the unders were profitable. Now these numbers are really low. So I'm going to stay away from now until the market kind of evens out. And then I want a couple more games of data so I can actually trust it. 8 games is a good number when you can really start running a model and have it have predictive accuracy. So we are almost there in that regard, and we'll be a little more active in the totals after that. This next game, the Toronto Raptors are catching 3.5, heading to Washington to take on the Wizards, a team I was high on before the season, and I think that they've pretty much gone to my expectations. They're playing pretty well so far. Raptors off to a slow start, so they kind of flew under the radar, but they're kind of playing the way that we had expected now. I lean towards Washington, but I don't want to get in front of the Raptors right now, so I'm staying away from this game as well. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the 3.5 number it seems pretty accurate. And there's a few spots I like on this card. I'm not gonna take a guess here and go with one side. DFS wise, Raptors, we have some guys in play here. I think Svi Mikhailuk, or however you pronounce his name, should be in the starting lineup again. 3.7K. With Scotty Barnes out, he played 35 minutes and produced 34 fantasy points. The best thing about the Raptors, man, whoever starts, that's the guy that gets the minutes. And Svi got the start, and he produced, so I expect him to have a good game today. Kem Birch was inserted into the starting lineup at halftime, I believe, and he played pretty darn well. Finished the game with 31 minutes, 25 fantasy points. If he gets a start again, which it might have just been a matchup thing, I don't know. We'll see. This is a 7 p.m. Eastern game, so we should get the news. But if he does start this game, I think he's definitely a play at 4K flat. Fred VanVleet just has turned into one of the more steady fantasy producers. Gary Trent Jr. is another guy that I don't mind, just playing a ton of minutes right now, just a ton of minutes. And if he's out there, he's going to be chucking the ball. So Toronto, I think, has a lot of appealing options here. It's a good matchup against the Wizards. The Wizards, though, on the other hand, are kind of a team. We always talk about these teams on the Hardwood Show and the other shows where you need like some sort of injury or a guy to be out to consider. For me, the Wizards are going to be one of those teams. Too many guys here. You got Dinwiddie, you got Beal, you got Kuzma, you got Harrell coming off the bench. There's just not enough basketball to go around with these guys. So for me, this is definitely moving forward, most likely, unless they're in a dream spot where I need an injury or a guy sitting out before I'm going to play any Wizards guys. We saw it a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was last week when Dinwiddie was out. Beal was out for a couple games. You just go to Kyle, and Gafford was out. You just go to Kyle Kuzma. You go to Harrell. They freaking smash. So look for the injuries with this team. If they don't have one, there's just no point to go there for DFS purposes.
Yeah, and guys, if you're noticing the theme in what Hoop is saying, it's we're always pivoting off these injuries, so that's why you need to become a member of RunPureSports.com. Head on over, use the promo code GetBets25. You'll get access to Hoops, Core, and all the other high-powered tournament players and cash players over there. You get access to the cash chart, so much great sports gambling information. Then, of course, you use the promo code GetBets. You get access to the bet side. You get my plays, Tyler plays, the Sports Kegs plays, JJ, Joey Work, and, of course, D. So take advantage of that offer right now. Head over to RunPureSports.com. Use the promo code GetBets. And I'm so happy that you mentioned Gary Trent Jr. Hoop, because one of the things I like to do now is I like to make a little lineup before I talk to you guys and then see who you guys mentioned that I threw in my lineup. And Trent was one of the guys that falls into me, that Jalen Brunson category. He's putting up big numbers and the price isn't going up. So I'm fine kind of looking towards him there. And if there's not any crazy injury news, he'll probably end up in there. Of course, I'd say 4 out of 5 times a week, we make a lineup. I feel great about it. I jump on the hardwood or I'm watching the final countdown. And, of course, we have to scrap it all when someone's pulled right. I was in the car 2 days ago when Tobias Harris got pulled, and I didn't want to do it while I'm driving. So I'm smashing home to try and switch my lineup and jam all those Sixers in there. So that's so much fun, but another reason to become a member of Run Pure Sports. And, of course, join on the bet side. Best gambling information you can get for your dollar. Chicago Bulls are +2 heading to Philadelphia to take on the Sixers. Hey, so far I was wrong on the Bulls. I thought that they were going to be around a 500 team. They look to be really good. Hey, maybe I'm old. Maybe I'm overestimating the value of defense, right? Because I thought this team couldn't defend, but they're doing quite well. And then their offense is so good. DeRozan's so good. Of course, Zach LaVine, man, I heard he's injured, and I'm barely even seeing any effects there. So I don't know what's going on with that. Lonzo fits great. Of course, the loss of Patrick Williams can't help. But let's be honest, he was pretty early in his development still. So I don't know how much that hurts at this point. I think that's more of a long-term thing where you don't get the year of him getting these minutes and getting better. We know he's a good defender, but I do think they can absorb it. My lean here is towards the Bulls, but do you think I'm drinking the Kool-Aid and maybe losing some value because they've been playing so well?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't, that I wasn't super high on the Bulls coming into this. I know they made all those moves and whatnot, and appears it might be wrong. I mean, it seems to be working, and a lot of it for me is with what DeMar DeRozan has been doing. I mean, he looks phenomenal out there, and scoring, contributing across the board. They have really solid rotations. If you watch the game, they mix these guys up a little bit, but DeRozan has just been phenomenal. So I think a lot of it goes to him. I'm with you. I'm definitely going to lean the Bulls on this one. I mean, the 76ers are pretty decimated without Tobias Harris. Obviously, Ben Simmons continues to be out. Danny Green also out tonight. For fantasy purposes, Joel Embiid is going to be a guy to go to. I mean, everything is going through him tonight. If this game stays close, I don't see how he doesn't smash. The problem is center's pretty darn loaded tonight. There's a lot of really solid center options. So I think that will keep his ownership in check. But, man, he could easily break the slate if this game does stay close. Secondary pieces that are in play for the 76ers, Maxey, Curry, Korkmaz, Niang, Milton. So there's a lot of different guys you can play on the 76ers side for fantasy purposes. On the Bulls side of things, though, it does get a little more difficult because these guys are all priced up. I mean, you have Vooch at 9-1. You have DeRozan now all the way at 8-5. We have Levine at 8-8. We have Lonzo Ball at 7-4. There's just no way. There's just not enough production to support all those price tags. So every night, at least one or two of these guys will likely underachieve. I don't want to mess with that. It's turning into a situation because these prices are so high where we're going to need something. We're going to need an injury. We're going to need a guy resting on a back-to-back, I think, before we really take a look at these Bulls guys. I was playing DeRozan quite a bit early on, but he was only like 7K. He was 7.3K, 7.2K, and you might look at it and say, oh, well, he's only 8.5K. That goes a long way. That goes from, fully punting a position to getting a guy like Gary Trent in the mid-4s. That's a big upgrade going from a 3.5K guy all the way up to a guy like Gary Trent who can play 35 minutes and shoot it 20 times. So that $1,200 now that DeRozan has increased is a big difference, and it makes it difficult to play him. So not a team I'm really going to be on, but the 76ers good spend in Joel Embiid and a lot of good value plays because of Tobias Harris being out, Ben Simmons being out, and Danny Green being out.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of value on this slate. I think it's going to be pretty easy to find 2 or maybe even 3 studs in your lineup. Question for you, and Eric Chang's got a little take on here. So I was thinking, so I can put Embiid in here pretty easily in one of my builds. Would I run it back with Vukovic? Eric Chang in the chat thinks Vukovic unders and the dude will be in foul trouble. Which way would you land on running with Vukovic with Embiid paired that way?
It makes it tough. I mean, especially if it's Vooch, because then you're locking in 2 center spots. So by your center's filled up, and then utility is filled up as well. And there are some really good center plays on the slate. I don't think you have to run it back, though, to be honest with you, because like I said, the Bulls, certain situations, yes, you want to run it back. This one, I don't think you have to, because the Bulls have so many guys that could be the reason why this game stays close. I mean, there's so many. I mean, it could be Lonzo. It could be a Lonzo game. It could be a Levine game. It could be DeRozan. It could be Vooch. Caruso coming off the bench. They have a lot of different ways to make this game competitive. So you're kind of just picking and choosing. And you're paying a premium too. It's not like you're playing Embiid and you're going to run it back and play a value guy on the Bulls. You're going to have to pay a big price tag on it. So yes, you can do it if you like these Bulls. But for me personally, I would not be running it back. I'd just go with Embiid.
Well, I think you and Eric make some good points there. And I think, if Embiid gets in there, we won't run it back with Vukovic. Here's a game that I do like. The New York Knicks are grabbing +1, and they're heading to Indiana to take on the Pacers. This Pacers team does not seem to have any continuity at this point. I don't want to blame Carlisle because guys are darting in and out of the lineup, right? They seem like they're going to get healthy. They get LeVert back. Now Brogdon's out. Another thing about Carlisle, though, I think he is kind of, resting on some past laurels, right? I mean, he kind of reminds me of Hoop is Pete Carroll. And it's a cross-sport analogy, right? But Carroll in 2010, one of the top coaches in the NFL. Right now, the game might have passed him by a little. It seems like some of the stuff that he does isn't the way that the new NFL is played. I feel a little bit that way about Carlisle. Of course, he's going to get a great opportunity to prove me wrong this season when this team gets full health. But as I wrote about today, are they going to ever be full health, right? I mean, these are a lot of guys with injury issues for their whole career. Regardless, when we're looking at tonight, what do we have for tonight on this report? All I see is Jeremy Lamb out and Malcolm Brogdon questionable. That means I assume that we will get some LeVert tonight and Sabonis, Turner. But I did like a Sabonis Randall mixing them as 2 spend-ups here. So talk to me about your thoughts. I like the Knicks. I think they win this game, and I'm going to go ahead and bet that and then maybe talk about some DFS options.
Yeah, I joined you. I saw how he's one of the first things I do in the morning is kind of get registered for some contests, and I pull up the bet sheet, and I saw that you were on the Knicks, and I joined you. So I got in on the Knicks as well. I do like that play. Brogdon did say, I believe he indicated to a reporter that he was going to play today. He's officially listed as questionable, but if that is true and he does play, really takes away from a lot of these guys. I mean, because then they got so many dudes: Duarte, Levert, Sabonis, Miles Turner, all guys that will be looking to score. So, in a tournament, I don't hate going with Sabonis and Julius Randle. They're two guys that, when it's going right, they're going to get fed by their teams and they're going to touch the ball every possession. So, in tournaments, if you want to do that, hope this game stays close. Can definitely endorse that. But just, taking a step back, looking at the Knicks. Knicks are not a very friendly DFS team. I mean, you got a guy like Derrick Rose coming off the bench. If he gets hot, he's staying in there and he's soaking up like a ton of usage. So not the best overall DFS team. Pacers side, kind of depends what happened with Brogdon. If he is out, then we can look at some of these guys. If he's in, it's going to be mostly a stay away from me outside of Sabonis.
And looking at the totals, I said we're going to kind of stay away. This was a game that I did like, though, and I know we've been preaching unders, but I think the correction is here, and I do like the over here. The Knicks went from being, one of the best defenses in the league last year to now they have a top offense, right? And how did they do that? They added Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier, two guys that can chuck, put points on the board. But hey, even I think I can get some points against those two defensively, right? Because they're not the best. And then, so they've kind of changed the identity of the team. I do think the books and the public still have this identity of the Knicks being this hard-nosed defensive team. I think they're more balanced now, but I do like the over here. Indiana's been putting up as well, but I don't really like their defense as much either. I think they get stuck on the perimeter and they rely on Miles Turner too much. When Turner goes in the doghouse, which he can, and gets less than 30 minutes, they become really vulnerable under the rim. I've seen Sabonis make some real highlight blocks, but I've also seen him give up on a lot of plays too. He's not necessarily the most proactive rim protector. If the block's there, he's going to go for it, but he doesn't always rotate there. I do like the over in this game. The Atlanta Hawks are catching 5 against the Brooklyn Nets, and on the injury report, it says John Collins is questionable, but from what I've been reading today on Twitter, that he will be sitting. So that, of course, gives you some DFS potential. And with that sitting out, I do like the Brooklyn Nets here. I like laying the 5 points here. I know DeAndre Hunter is a very good defender, but I don't think there's any defender in the world that can stop Kevin Durant. And I think the young cat's going to have a little bit of a baptism tonight. As good as he is, no one can stop him. And I'd rather have like a PJ Tucker or a veteran guy, that knows all the tricks to try and slow down Durant, rather than Hunter, who I think is going to play him straight up and really try to beat him the right way, unlike Tucker, who will nudge and really, bend the rules a bit, right? Try and frustrate him. I like the Nets a lot here tonight. I think the Nets are a team that we stay away from on DFS, except for the two studs. And, with Collins out, I'd love to hear how you're pivoting, because I did know that was important news, but I didn't really know how to take advantage of it. What do you think about my pick of the Nets -5, and how are you attacking this game from a DFS perspective?
Yeah, I mean, with the Collins news, it's really hard to, invest in the Hawks. And assuming that he is out, I was kind of leaning that way as well. I mean, I like placing a bet on the Nets here, just speculating that him being out is still live either way. Obviously, if he's in. DFS wise, if Collins is out, I mean, the first guy, sometimes it's a situation where we're looking to guys coming off the bench that might get the biggest benefit. For me, it's going to be guys that are already in the starting lineup. The first guy is going to be Clint Capella, who going into the season, there was some sort of minutes restriction. Well, it appears that last game that finally went away, he played 33 minutes. So I'm going to just assume that Capella no longer has a minutes restriction and he's going to be playing into the mid-30s in close games. And if that's the case, his price is too cheap. And then you throw in this injury with John Collins, then his price is really too cheap. So Capella's a guy to keep an eye out on here. If we get we will get the news. It's 7:30 Eastern. We're going to get this probably an hour before this game. Love Capella. I think Trae Young gets a boost as well. He's 9.5K. I think you can definitely go to him. On the net side, just really hard to trust anyone outside of Harden and Durant. We were kind of ragging on Harden early on, and rightfully so, but he appears to have finally found it a little bit. Getting back to the peripheral stats, I mean, 10 rebounds, 10 assists in that game against Detroit. Prior to that, the game against the Pacers, 8 rebounds, 8 assists. So he's getting back to scoring and racking up the peripherals. So I think we can definitely take a look at him in DFS. 10.2K on DraftKings, I think, is a fair price tag for him. Definitely would prefer him over Durant. Durant's 10.8K, so I'll just take the 600 savings and just go with a guy like Harden.
Yeah, and I think, and I hate to be defending James Harden here, right? not the most likable NBA player, but I do think he's getting an unfair rap. From everything that I've read, he was told, do not work out this offseason. We would just come in healthy with no nicks, no bruises. He stayed away from the basketball court. He said he'd usually play pickup to get himself in shape before training camp. He was avoiding it, and he's actually doing it on the court. And we're seeing it because I talked about him being slow the last time you were on the show, Hoop. He's getting faster, right? Week by week, right? The opening night, I mean, he looked like I could get by him, right? Looking a lot better there. One more question on the Hawk side. So a guy that I'd put in my original lineup off the Collins news was Gallinari at 3,500. Am I reading this right? Is that an option here?
Yeah, he would. I mean, if Collins is out, I think you can definitely throw Gallinari in the mix. I mean, my only concern is the minutes, and obviously he would get more if Collins were to miss. But I mean, he hasn't played more than 19 and a half minutes so far this season. So there is some sort of cap on the minutes. I still would probably lean some of these other value plays. We have some great values on the 76ers side. We have some great values for the Spurs that we'll talk about coming up here soon, and potentially more because the Pelicans could be thin too. So I think I prefer the other spots more, but he's a guy that, if you're going to play like 150 lineups, you can include him.
All right, sounds like a plan. And I was putting all the players in, and I'm mad I accidentally just exited out. So I might be asking you some more questions here towards the end of the show. Here's another one that I like: the Denver Nuggets. They're doing this little back-to-back, right, where they play the same team in the same arena. The Nuggets had a rough loss in their most recent game. Now they just get to run it straight back. I usually like taking, the zigzag like we would do during the playoffs here. So I like the Nuggets here. What do you think? Am I overlooking John Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies?
Yeah, I always lean the Nuggets. I'm a sucker for the Nuggets. I truly am, and especially when they're underdogs, albeit like a slight underdog. But I would lean the Nuggets here. DFS wise, the Nuggets side, it's become very difficult to trust anyone outside of Jokic. I mean, there hasn't been any consistency with anyone last year. We could kind of rely on Michael Porter Jr. Has not been the case this season. So it's a situation where it's Jokic or nobody for me, and I think anytime you're going to get Jokic in a game that is likely competitive, which we have here, he's going to be a strong option. And 1 point spread, give me Jokic. On the Grizzlies side, tough because the prices are starting to come up on a lot of these guys, specifically the guards, like Jaws all the way up to 9.3K. Melton, Bain, both in the mid fives, where they're in like the 4K range a couple weeks ago. The bigs, though, I think are still in play. Jaren Jackson, 5.5K. Steven Adams at 4.5K, I think are fine options tonight. Should be a good back and forth type game, if the spread holds true. So Jokic on the Nugget side, and then the bigs for the Grizzlies, I think, are in play. Jaren Jackson and Steven Adams.
All right. Yeah, so we both like the Nuggets in that one. And once again, I'm staying away from the total in this game. Here's an interesting game that's pretty popular. When I'm following NBA Twitter, a lot of cappers are on the Timberwolves here. They're now catching 2.5, and I assume that's off the D'Angelo Russell news. I also see Serge Ibaka's out, but he hasn't played, I don't think, for the last 2 years. And D'Angelo Russell, Marcus Morris out. Patrick Beverley, questionable. I thought Beverley would be an interesting punt if he does play going against his old team. I'm not as big on the revenge as Mangone, but a guy like Beverley, right? I think that I think the angle is definitely in play tonight. What are your thoughts on the game? I was going to be contrarian here and I'm sure it's not contrarian to the public, but just to the Twitter cappers, all the sharp guys giving out plays on Twitter that win consistently. They like the Timberwolves here. I still like the Clippers, man. I think that I think this team is undervalued. They did pretty well, and everyone says, "Oh, there's no Kawhi Leonard." They did pretty well in the playoffs without Kawhi Leonard. And Paul George nicknames himself Playoff P. Has a terrible performance in Oklahoma City, and everyone acts like he's this bad player. And I've been sneaking him in there as my spend up. And I'm always unique. He's never owned a lot, and he gets me numbers every single night. I lean the Clippers here. Talk to me about your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of torn on the game. I don't have like a strong lean on this one. I mean, the Clippers have been very hit or miss. I mean, they just look good at times, look awful at times. And the Timberwolves, no D'Angelo Russell, which honestly I think could be a good thing for them. He's looked rough this year. I mean, he's had some good games, but man, overall he's been a down for this team. So it's where I'm kind of torn because I think the Timberwolves might be better off without D'Angelo Russell. We'll see tonight. Fantasy wise, though, no D'Angelo Russell is obviously a big boost for a lot of guys. If Patrick Beverley does start, he's 3.7K. Malik Beasley is only 4.1K. He played 32 minutes last game, 24 fantasy points. Jordan McLaughlin is 3K flat. He should probably be in the mid-20s in terms of playing time. Vanderbilt, 3.6K. All these guys are going to get a boost. So we have a lot of value options on the Timberwolves side, and that's where I'd lean. I'd lean with the value guys over the spends here. Yes, Anthony Edwards is fine. Karl Anthony Towns is fine. I'm just going to go with the cheap value guys in this one. On the Clippers side, Paul George, I think, is a great fantasy option. He's priced all the way up there where people feel uncomfortable playing him over other guys, like you kind of mentioned. I mean, you're playing him, and the ownership's got to be pretty damn low because everyone's going to play Luka over him. Everyone's going to play James Harden over him. Everyone's going to play Jokic over him. So you're able to get Paul George at low ownership. That being said, he's probably the only guy, though, on the Clippers side that I would be considering tonight for DFS. We just have, most of the supporting cast for the Clippers, the price tags are cheap. But, I prefer the other cheap guys that we've already talked about and some more cheap guys in these upcoming games over these Clippers guys.
Yeah, I mean, just to sum it up, right, there's cheaper guys that are going to get a lot more usage due to injuries than a Clippers team that is essentially full strength. And, you guys do a much better job on this at the Hardwood Show. I need to get better at it. Thank you for reminding me, Devin. Everyone should give this video a like. They're doing this us for free. Thank you, Devin. We are trying to bring you winners, and we are doing it for free. So all we ask in return, hit the like button, and make sure you at least check out Run Pure Sports. If you decide it's not for you, that's fine, but at least head over to the website and see everything that we do have to offer. Let's head on over to the Dallas Mavericks, who are playing the San Antonio Spurs. The Spurs are another, I would say, popular amongst Twitter cappers. I don't know if it's just, if you look at the Action Network and you see the actual way the monies break down, I'm sure a lot of casual bettors, right, that are at work right now and not posting on Twitter and making YouTube videos are on the Mavericks. I'm with the public on this one. I like the Mavs. I think it's at the point where they're getting undervalued because of some bad performances, and I think that we're viewing them under the lens of a championship contender. So when we're analyzing all their flaws as a team, it's as a championship contender, and then we're viewing the Spurs as like a perennial lottery team, so they're exceeding expectations, right? Still, regardless, Luka's going to be so much better than anyone on the floor. I do think they are motivated to get it right. One concern for this team, though, will they ever get it right under Jason Kidd? So I didn't make a bet on it, but I do lean towards the Dallas side. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, we're gonna disagree on this one because I'm on the Spurs, and I am on the Dallas is overrated bandwagon as well. So we typically, when it comes to the NBA stuff, you and I tend to be on the same side. This one we're going to be on opposite sides. I just don't think Dallas is very good. Their supporting cast is terrible outside of Brunson. I will say Brunson has looked very good. Problem last night, they start Brunson. So, they start the game out very hot. He gets off to a good start. Luka comes out, Brunson comes out. Their bench is just dust. I mean, their bench is just shit. And then the Heat get right back in the game and end up pulling away at the end. So I don't know if starting Brunson was the best idea. I mean, I'm assuming if Porzingis is back tonight, Brunson probably goes to the bench. But I don't know. Porzingis, he just, to me, is just not very good either. So I don't know. I'm down on Dallas. It's a back-to-back here. Spurs at home. I already bet the Spurs. I feel very good about the Spurs tonight. So Actually, let me take that back. I felt better about the Spurs before the Pirtle news that Pirtle is going to be out. I mean, because he's actually played pretty darn good this season. So not as high on the Spurs with Pirtle out, but I still do like the Spurs quite a bit in this spot. Fantasy wise, Luka, you can always play. I think he's fine. And on DraftKings, you can play him at point guard or small forward. Jalen Brunson, like you talked about, they will not budge his price. Like they refuse to move Brunson at all, and he's had some big games. I guess maybe you pull up the game log. Maybe it's because there were a couple stinkers in there. An 11 fantasy point game of 16, then he goes off last game. So he is producing some, pretty high variance performances. So maybe that's why the price stays in check. But I do like him. They need him. I mean, you look at the rest of these guys after Luka. I mean, it's just a bunch of dusty dudes. Like they need Brunson to be productive offensively for their team to be good. So I think, moving forward, they lean on him a little bit more. Spurs side, no Pirtle. So I'm assuming Drew Eubanks gets the start. He's 3K, and I think he can definitely be very productive in this spot. Thaddeus Young is 4.1K. He's going to have to play more minutes without Pirtle. I mean, Pirtle's been playing a lot of minutes, and he's been very productive. Like they're going to have to fill that void. So Eubanks and Thad Young, I think, are phenomenal DFS plays here tonight.
Okay, and I was going to ask you the pivot, so I guess I read that wrong. The guy that I was going to try and put in my lineup with that news was Keldan Johnson. What do you think of that? He's in the 5K range.
Fine play. I mean, they're going to need guys like him to play more, be more productive on the glass. Fine playing with him. He's a guy that's kind of been in play already. Prior to the Pirtle news. The Eubanks thing and the Thad Young, I mean, you're never going to consider Eubanks or Thad Young unless Pirtle's out. So I think, Keldan's fine. And, man, Jonte Murray has just been phenomenal this year. I mean, he's, coming off his first bad game of the season against the Pacers. I'd expect him to bounce back too. But it's a big boy price tag. I mean, 9.2 is no joke on the price tag for him. But the bigs for the Spurs definitely in play here.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, Thad Young, that's a great option too. He's another guy that gets all those peripherals for you, right? The stocks that you talk about, right? He'll get steals, blocks, assists, rebounds. So he could not even put up 10 points and still get you a little fire next to his name. I can't wait to talk about this game with you because it involves my hometown team, the New Orleans Pelicans. How did they blow that cover last night? So I had a nice little parlay, and I had pretty much written it off, and I kind of was barely paying attention, and I was sweating in the under, that I talked about at the beginning of the show, that we the people and a lot of the other chatters had talked about. And so I'm sweating the under, and I said, wait a second, they're going to come back and cover, and I'm going to hit that parlay too. So I was running pure in that game. Felt pretty good about it. Now, so the Kings played in Utah last night. They covered for us. That was a play on the show. Very happy about that. I talk about, real safe feeling. Maybe there's one point with 8 minutes left in the fourth where it's switched above the number, but I'd say for 40 something minutes of the game, they were covering that spread. And I think if De'Aaron Fox gets back to his normal level, that's a game that they win. Davion Mitchell has just been such a boost to this team. GM Monty McNair, 2 for 2 so far. He's pretty popular in Sacramento right now. Now you get a Pelicans team that's playing absolutely terrible. We are still waiting on the news on Brandon Ingram. I don't know if you'd heard anything. All I'm seeing right here is a questionable. A guy that we had rostered a lot on the Run Pure, right? Because I was going through the standings and seeing what other people play. I didn't put Herb Jones in there, but I know that a lot of people did, and he was doing great until he got a concussion. He's on the injury report as questionable, but I'll tell you what. It got just moved out. Yeah, I was going to say there's no way he's going to pass that protocol in time, so he's out for this team. Ingram or not, I like the Kings here. Am I being too much of a hometown fan, or am I onto a winner?
No, I'm with you. I mean, back to back here, it's a tough spot. I would definitely side Kings in this game as well. At home against this Pelicans team. Now, for DFS, this is a very difficult situation because this game doesn't start till 10 p.m. Eastern, 3 hours after lock, and they just kind of updated Ingram's status. They officially said he is questionable. I was kind of assuming that he would be out. I mean, they pulled the trigger on it early yesterday, ruled him out pretty early, and now today they kind of re-solidified that questionable tag. Maybe it has something to do with Big Herb being out. I don't know, but that this dictates what happens on the Pelicans side. If Ingram's in, we're probably not playing any Pelicans guys tonight. If Ingram is out, we are going to be playing Pelicans guys. We're going to be playing Devontae Graham, who's a phenomenal play. Valanciunas would be a phenomenal play. Alexander Walker, Hart. There's 5 or 6 guys you would be looking at if Ingram is out. But if he's in, you're probably not playing any of them. Tough to build your lineups waiting on this news because there's only 2 10 p.m. Eastern games. So it's a very difficult situation to kind of sort out. I mean, it's like an all in or all out type play here because, like I said, if Ingram's in, you're probably not playing it. If Ingram's out, you have a bunch of guys you can play for the Pelicans. Very tough for DFS. Very important to track the news here.
All right, let's assume Ingram's out, and I'm going to let you play the role of spread psychologist here. Now, we got a guy, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, who absolutely sunk. I put him in both lineups. That was stupid. I ran 2 bullets yesterday, and he sunk both my lineups. So how do you approach something like that, right? Because I know that Jalen Brunson did that to me a week ago, and we went right back to him, and he followed up at his 11 with a 40 spot. Do you feel like that's something that could happen here? The reason I'm fine just completely staying away from him, he hasn't been good all season, right? So with Brunson, he threw up that snowflake, but we're saying, okay, but he's been good, right? Walker hasn't really been good all year. I'm ready to just cross him off. Do you think I'm making a rookie mistake?
I would just go to Devontae Graham. I mean, Devontae Graham looks very, very good. Same position, pretty similar price tag. Graham, the last few games, has looked phenomenal with Ingram out. So I'd be going to Graham. I'd be going to Valanciunas. Those are my 2 favorite if Brandon Ingram's out. I mean, Alexander Walker early on was looking good, but the last week or so, he's really, really fallen off, and the minutes are starting to come down too, which is a little concerning as well. So my preference for sure would be Devontae Graham and then Valanciunas if Ingram's out.
And then on the Kings side, because they're a balanced team and the usage is split pretty evenly, I haven't really been putting any of them in there. Rashawn Holmes is the only one, but tonight I'm not even considering him because it seems like there's so many better options at center. I would probably be fine if I have even 3 lineups with no Kings in them. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's one of those teams. I mean, I talked about it where we need injury, we need somebody resting before we can really consider them. There's just too many options. It makes it tough when you got guys like Davion Mitchell and Buddy Hield coming off the bench because if those guys get hot, just really going to take away from the starters in this game. So, I mean, you're looking at 5 or 6 guys that need to be productive offensively, and there's just not enough to go around. So for me, it is one of those teams where we need an injury or we need a guy out resting before we can play him.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. And as Kings fans, the only thing really going wrong this season, De'Aaron Fox finishing the season last year averaging 25-7, has not played the same way. But I think he'll turn it around soon. It's just a matter of when. It might not be tonight. So he will be out of all lineups until that happens. The final game on the card, the Charlotte Hornets +6, heading to Golden State to take on the Warriors. Hornets, interesting team here. I don't know exactly what's going on with LaMelo not closing games over Ish Smith. I don't know if that's because of his bad defense. Really surprising to me. They're still able to get some things done regardless, but I still like the Warriors here. I wasn't sure how good they were going to be this year, but they did it right this year. I think the additions of Otto Porter and Bielika have really bolstered the bench unit, and that's allowed Steph to really go off. Draymond looks a little more healthy this year, came into the season a little better than he was last year when he missed training camp with COVID. So I like the Warriors here. What do you think? I'm going 2 NorCal teams.
Yeah, give me the Warriors. I'm with you. I like the Warriors here -6. I mean, I just can't imagine playing the Hornets in this spot. It would have to be a pretty big number before I would get on them. DFS wise, I say it every show. LaMelo Ball, if you're making a bunch of lineups, is a guy that you should definitely have in your player pool. If you're doing the 150 or whatever it is, he can go off. He can go off in short periods of time. He doesn't need the full complement of minutes to get 60 fantasy points. Just a phenomenal play. If the Hornets do keep this game close, you have to imagine that it's going to be because of him. So LaMelo is he's definitely the only guy that I would be playing on the Hornet side. On the Warrior side, Steph for sure. I mean, he's definitely a really good play and very productive this year. Has been phenomenal. Jordan Poole maybe a little bit. I mean, Andrew Wiggins is pretty cheap. You can consider him. But to me, the two key plays here are going to be LaMelo and Steph Curry. But I mean, that's really not saying all that much.
Yeah, and talking about the prices, right? Mikal Bridges was great for us, right?
Yeah.
What is he today? 8K or something?
Yeah, he's 8.1K. I mean,
yeah, and that's right. I think that's the proper pricing, but it's just so funny how they adjust to these guys so quickly. So let's go ahead and just give the people maybe like a mini core. But guys, remember, this is so subject to news. We've been doing this, and I think it's a fun exercise, especially for Hoop, because I know you're going to be busy. You do hardwood today, right?
Wednesday is the only day I don't.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, this will be the only exercise you get. But, you know, it gets us ready when we're watching. But so many times, late news just causes us to pivot off these cores. I still think it's a fun exercise. And, hey, maybe one of these days, nobody will be rolled out from the time the NBA rundown ends and the lock happens. And we'll be able to use this core pretty well. But talk to me about maybe 4 players we can get in there, you know, a couple values and maybe a good spend up.
Yeah, so I mean, the first value is going to be Chetty Osman, and this is something you don't have to worry about the news. We already have the news. Markkanen's out, Kevin Love's out. He's only 3.6K. We're gonna go to Chetty. Eubanks, I think at 3K is a great play, assuming he starts, which I think he will. I mean, pretty similar player to Pirtle. They can just kind of slide him in and still run the same stuff. You know, you're looking at, I think, 10 points, 10 rebound, double type guy at 3K. That is more than enough. I'm going to throw James Harden in there. I like the net. We both like the Nets in the spot here tonight. Harden is like you said, finally starting to look a little bit better. They told him, I hadn't heard that about not doing much in the off season, but it did look like that was the case because he came out looking like shit, starting to get faster, starting to look better. James Harden. And then let me throw one more play out there. We'll go, if Brandon Ingram's out, Devontae Graham. We just kind of talked about him, and he looks really solid right now. So Devontae Graham would be the last piece if Ingram's out. All
right. Thank you very much for that. That's a great core there. Just to repeat, we got Chetty Osman, Drew Eubanks, James Harden, and Devontae Graham. Let's go ahead and give them a best bet. Hoop, once again, we'll start with you.
I'm going to my Spurs. The only spot really where we disagree on this card. I don't have much respect for the Mavericks. I don't think they're good. I think they're overrated. On a back-to-back here in San Antonio, I would have liked this much more if Pirtle was in, but he's out. I think they can still get it done at home. So give me the Spurs as my best bet.
No, I think it's fun disagreeing. When I had Bobby Gomes on Monday, we disagreed on a lot, and I thought one of us were going to get bragging rights, and it ended up being like 3-3, right? So we couldn't really do a lot of the gloating there, but it's a lot of fun there. I'm going to go ahead and go back, off the James Harden, put him in the core. I like the Brooklyn Nets -5 here. I think that this is a good play. I do think the Atlanta Hawks are a very good team. But remember, they kind of got fortunate in that run to make the playoffs last year, catching that Philly team when they were completely discombobulated. That allowed them to make the Eastern Conference Finals. They beat the Knicks team, which this year has offense, but last year had no offense. Maybe a tad bit overrated. And I think this Brooklyn Nets team starting to find form. Another good thing for Brooklyn, they've been at home for a while. So they should be well rested. Atlanta on the road. Arena should be rocking. Players should be rested. I think the Nets win and win by margin. So the best bets today will be the San Antonio Spurs and the Brooklyn Nets. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Remember, head on over to runpurebets.com. You can go ahead and check out all this great sports gambling information we have to offer. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hey, share this with your friends, right? We're getting more and more viewers every week. I have so much fun when I see all the people in the chat having fun. You guys did a great job of helping me out yesterday, so we want to continue to keep this show growing. Share it with your friends. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much, Hoop, for